Welcome to the lesson on using Swift Calcs with Autodesk Fusion 360. Swift Calcs has built an add-in for Autodesk Fusion 360 that allows you to utilize Swift Calcs documents to directly control user parameters and drive model geometry within Fusion 360. This lesson assumes knowledge of how to use Autodesk Fusion 360 and also assumes that you have already installed the Swift Calcs add-in. If you need help with this, search for help on using the Autodesk App Store and use the link on this page to find the add-in for macOS and Windows. To use Swift Calcs within Autodesk Fusion 360, go to the Modify menu. You'll see that there are two new options to load Swift Calcs and sync parameters. First, we'll look at the Change Parameters options to see the user parameters already present in this model. Part length has a value of 3.51 inches. Now we'll go to Modify and load Swift Calcs. When you click the Load Swift Calcs option in Autodesk Fusion 360, your browser will load with Swift Calcs inside of it. Swift Calcs will load a project specifically attached to this Autodesk file. At first it will be empty, but here we've already created one document. To create a new document, click the red icon at the bottom right and name your worksheet. We'll call this New Parameter. Let's define some variables. A equals 12, B equals 24, and C equals A plus B over 2. To link with Fusion, look for the Fusion 360 option in the toolbox and click and drag the Set User Parameter tool onto your worksheet. The tool will load the current user parameter list from your Fusion 360 file. Click the parameter you'd like to set or create a new one. Here we'll create a new one, which we will call New Parameter. We'll assign this a value of C. Let's add another parameter. We'll call this Second Parameter and set its value to 2C. After the calculations are complete, the Sync to Fusion 360 button turns blue. Clicking on this button will relaunch Fusion, and a pop-up message will appear indicating that the sync has been completed. If we go back to our Modify menu and click Change Parameters, we can see that our two parameters, New Parameter and Second Parameter, have been created by Swift Calcs and updated within Autodesk Fusion 360. Let's return to Swift Calcs and change our values. Here, we'll switch B to 2.4 instead of 24. We can click the Sync to Fusion 360 button again. Alternatively, we can go to Fusion, Modify menu, and sync parameters from Swift Calcs here. Syncing from either area performs the same task. The pop-up indicates that the sync has been completed. If we return to the Parameters menu within Modify, we'll see that New Parameter and Second Parameter have been updated with their new values. We can use these parameters anywhere in Autodesk Fusion 360 to control geometry, including depths of extrusions or dimensions. This basic example only scratches the surface of the power of using Autodesk Fusion 360 with Swift Calcs. Let's look at a more detailed example. In this example, we have created a model of a reciprocating saw. We care about the dimension at which this drive arm, shown in blue, connects to the drive gear here. If this drive arm connects too close to the center, we won't get much speed. If the drive arm connects too far away, we'll get lots of speed but no power. Finding the optimum point is of interest. We'll go to Modify and load Swift Calcs to load our worksheets. This Swift Calcs worksheet uses the mass of a user and many mathematical functions to define the optimal point at which to attach this gear. It then uses our variables to update 4 variables in Fusion 360. Let's change our mass of our user from 170 pounds to 220. Swift Calcs will recalculate all its variables, forces, functions, and radii, which we can then sync to Fusion 360. After the parameters are updated, the point at which this arm attaches to the gear has been changed. This example shows how complicated mathematical models can be directly used to drive your CAD geometry, and how these calculations can be associated and saved with your CAD models so that they are not lost, but instead stay with your design and can be updated and reviewed later. Please note that sharing settings are not linked between Autodesk and Swift Calcs. If you share your Autodesk files with other users, please be sure that you also give them access rights to the Swift Calcs documents in Swift Calcs as well. Otherwise, the users will not be able to access the Swift Calcs files. The Swift Calcs documents, however, are associated with the Autodesk files, so when you send or share your Autodesk Fusion 360 files with others, when they install the Swift Calcs add-in and go to the Modify menu and load Swift Calcs, They will also see all associated worksheets with this Autodesk Fusion 360 file. We're continually working on our integration with Autodesk Fusion 360. Check our blog and our help area as we introduce more features to the application.